Testing, 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 testing.
All right, good morning. I don't have a gavel, so we're just going to get started. Call the meeting to order. And I'd like to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Amy, if you could lead us in that, that'd be fantastic.
Salute pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was at a Lions Club meeting this morning, and they sang My Country 'Tis of Thee afterwards. I haven't sang that like since fourth grade.
Yeah, that is a great song. Yeah, cool. All right, it looks like we have everybody here, but let's start with a roll call, please.
Director Brandow.
Here.
Director Magsig.
Here.
Director Mendez. Here. Director Makari. Here. Director Pacheco.
Here.
Director Sheklian.
Here.
Director Vanderpool.
Present.
All right, that's nice. Everybody's here. Then we're on to item number 4, which is the approval of today's agenda. Have there been any changes to the agenda we need to know about? Doesn't look like it. I will entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Move approval?
Do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item number 5, public comment. We begin usually with an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item within the jurisdiction of the SJVIA that is not appearing on today's agenda. So in order for everybody to be heard, we just give 3 minutes to each person. Is there any members of the public that like to comment on anything today? All right, easy enough. Now we're on to item number 6, the approval of minutes this is regarding the board meeting of July 27th of this year. And I imagine there's no changes to those minutes, so I'll ask if there's any comments, or do I have a motion?
Move approval?
Do I have a second? Second. Any members of the public like to comment on approval of minutes? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Item number 7, receive update from Auditor Treasurer on cash flows. And this is information only, so it's not an action item.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Blanks with the Auditor Controller's Office. So update on cash flows. Our high for the period was $37,062,607. Low was $32,896,987. Our weekly cash average was $34,724,015, and our weekly PPO claim average was $835,482.59. Questions about that, or?
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. It looks like on this, on the weekly averages, where you start on 7/3 of 2023, you're showing $37,062,607. And when I skip ahead to the next item, where it shows the unaudited as of June 30th, 2023, just basically our net position overall, I was trying to figure out these numbers, and I know that there's a 4-day difference between cash here. So is the difference in amounts timing of payments? And I know that this is a cash position, but I couldn't replicate when I backed out, due from other governments on the next item, the $4,079,000. I was still off by like $800,000. So I was trying to figure out where our cash position as of 7/3, why the variance was like almost $800,000 between our unaudited position as of end of June.
It's a mix of timing and then the fact that these are weekly averages.
So it's just an average, so it's not an exact.
Correct.
It's not okay.
Correct.
That's all I was wondering. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Matt? All right, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Oh, there's another, the next slide.
Okay.
Again, just showing our cash position at August 14th. We had $32,810,967 was cash on hand for that day, versus our IBNR and 3-month stabilization reserve benchmarks and the Gallagher settlement. Again, if we wanted to leave that Gallagher settlement as a separate pot of money within that 32 million, we would have a deficit of covering all three of those benchmarks. Does that make sense? But if we were just comparing to the IBNR, the 3-month stabilization reserves that we've set aside, there's a excess of 1,705,000, not 891, excuse me, compared to our cash position at August 14th.
Nathan?
We assigned Jason and I think Paul Nerlin to work together to try to figure out what we're going to do, how that $7 million is going to be dispersed between the two agencies. I know I've expressed my interest to keep Fresno County's portion, so to speak, in the SJVIA. Where are those conversations? Because hopefully we can resolve that quickly so we can stop having this $7 million show up as a liability, and maybe at some point we can get out of the red, so to speak.
Having some having some conversations on that. We'll make sure that by the next meeting we will have a report out on that.
Any other questions for Matt on that slide? All right,
Okay. That's the end of the cash flow update.
perfect. Final comments or questions? All right, we'll look forward to that update next time, Hollis, and thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Item number 9, also an information only item, receive consultants' medical, dental, and vision experience reports.
Do we not have number 8?
Oh, that's right. Thank you for clarifying that. You're on the ball today, Pacheco. Receive update from Auditor Treasurer on SJVIA Financial.
All right. So, still Matt Blanks from the Auditor Controller Office. So these are unaudited financials for fiscal year 22-23. So at the end of the fiscal year, we had total assets of $41,994,299. Total liabilities of $17,623,585 for a net position of $24,366,375. Next slide, please. So our next slide is a representation of our actual cash versus the budgeted amount, so budgetary analysis. For receipts, we had a total budgeted amount of $122,570,672. Our actuals for the year were $131,988,906. That's a favorable difference of $9,418,234. We had total disbursements budgeted of $122,055,841. Actual disbursements for the year, $125,403,750. Any questions?
Okay.
So back to the net position page, unaudited. It says due from other governmental units, $4,079,374. What is that for? So up in assets, current assets due from other governmental units, $4,079,374.
It's premiums due from the counties, like for example, County of Tulare was, I don't know, a few days late to submit the premium. So that's usually where that amount goes. So I don't know whenever this report was completed, our premium probably hadn't been submitted yet.
And right now, both Fresno or Tulare, when they make payments, their premium payments, we never go like beyond 30 days in arrears with a payment, correct?
No, maybe a few days, but no more than a week.
Okay, a few days, no more, that's good. And then looking at total assets, I was a little shocked to see, our total assets right around roughly $42 million. That seems a lot higher, and I know that I pay close attention to the, the cash position. So, I guess where there's a bit of a disconnect for me as I take a look at the unaudited financials that we have through here, the numbers reflect over a 12-month period We continue to move in a positive direction, but again, I think a lot of that is because of the $7 million that was injected in last year, sometime between July and June, correct, of the 2022-2023 year, right?
I believe it's around March.
Around March. So it came in March of 2022. So it wouldn't be reflective in these numbers. So then what these numbers tell me is July of 2022, and then looking at where we ended June of 2023, there is a difference of about $4.5 million. So if anything, our cash position should be improving overall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because just a few months ago, we were concerned that, I know that Tulare County, that you had a lot of high claims, and so it looked like we were burning cash up. But that flipped at some point in the last 2 or 3 months then?
This was, sorry.
As far as claims, I mean, I know that June's claims were a lot less than the previous month, but I don't know as far as when those claims hit, whether that's reflective of this or not. I'm not sure.
I think that also the CMC claims have not been paid, so that might kind of artificially show a better cash position because those claims have not been paid yet.
That would make sense then. And now those claims would be millions of dollars.
We,
I asked, do you have an estimate of what the CMC claims are that are outstanding?
Around 3 million, Borden? 3.5. 3.5.
So that's a pretty significant amount.
Yeah, that's, all right. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Next slide. This next slide is our analysis of administration, wellness, and communication fees. It's basically the Auditor Controller's Office, legal fees, human resources. We had receipts of $217,729, and then disbursements of $521,890. Any questions?
No?
Next slide. And then finally, our cash flow position. Cash flow in the beginning was $333,781,403, and we ended with $37,706,332. Any questions? Okay.
No, okay.
That's the end of my report on the unaudited financials. Thank you.
Now, item 9, receive consultants' medical, dental, and vision experience reports.
Good morning, Board and Darm with Keenan. I have the experience report. This is through June of 2023. And if you will, on the first page of the consulting report, one of the things that we needed to do, because this is through June, at that point in time, CMC and Anthem had not yet reached an agreement on a new network yet. And so we were still accumulating billed charges. And that first chart basically shows, to give you a better representation of what our experience has been, we needed to add a factor in for those CMC claims into the experience. Otherwise, I'd be presenting a skewed report. So through June 23rd, that was the last report that we had, there were $7.8 million in not claims, but billed charges. So billed charges are before network discounts and so forth are applied. And using a 65.8, which is what was being used in the last RFP when we made that decision, that comes down to an estimate of about 2.6 million or 2.7 million. When we look at CMC claims from a historical perspective, 95% are related to County of Fresno, 5% is related to Tulare County. So we made an allocation to the experience based off the numbers shown below of 2.5 and 133. So when we do that, we're still looking in a very favorable position. The medical loss ratio for the County of Fresno on our self-funded plan is 87.1%. County of Tulare is 103.7. It's still above 100, but that is a number to celebrate because the year before we were substantially above that number. And so things have improved. Overall, we're at 92.9 for the SJVIA. Dental continues to do well. Overall, we're at a 90% loss ratio there. Vision remains a fully insured coverage. We're at 91.3. There is a disparity between, and always has been, between County of Fresno and County of Tulare. County of Tulare loves their designer glasses, I suppose, more so than County of Fresno because we got 83.4% loss ratio there.
No, I think I can explain what's going on there. My son has so many pairs of broken glasses that we have to replace, so I think that's why there's the difference.
Well, okay, we'll call it the Vanderpool factor. Okay. On the next page, the 92.9% total cost loss ratio means that we've accumulated about a surplus of about $3 million over the first 6 months of the year. On the Delta Dental self-funded plan at a 90% loss ratio, that means about $246,000, and Vision was about $33,000 at 91.3%. In addition to that, we have some other components that contribute where we have margins in place. I will say this, that as I mentioned, County of Tulare is looking better this year than they did last year, and in a moment we'll show you a graph that kind of illustrates that point substantially. But on the County of Fresno side, this year we still have EPO parity in place, which is a margin component, and margin in general on the Kaiser component as well too. In addition to that, we look at what we've accumulated in prescription drug rebates and in other items, bringing us to a total so far over the first 6 months. We calculate a $5.6 million margin. Our total budget for the year was 6.5, so we're at 86.6 halfway through the year, which is a very good, strong number. I don't want to, jinx us for the rest of the year, but we're looking strong through the first half. Page 3, you just see kind of the accumulation of the reserves. Like I mentioned, the line graph shows 5.6 compared to 6.5.
Quick question back on page 2. One of the bullet points in there, you put Keenan projects prescription drug rebates of $3.45 million for 2023, but you also said third and fourth quarter 2022 rebates have posted in 2023 for $1.127 million.
Right.
So help me understand, the rebates that we see in 2023 are going to be both 2023 rebates and a portion of 2022 rebates? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, there's always a lag in recording prescription drug rebates. So for instance, if we can go to the very last page of this report, that chart, if you look under the prescription drug rebate line, down at the very bottom of the page, you'll see we received 2 rebates, $532,000 and $595,000. Those are third and fourth quarter rebates for the previous year. We have not received any 2023 rebates yet.
Okay. And so again, with 2023, there were some new things that we did with prescription drugs where we get 100% of the rebate versus where before it was, I think we were only getting 80%, correct?
So yeah, and then that's for 2023, and then for 2024, there's even more enhancements.
Okay, because of the lag. Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I did want to just call your attention to page 4, the bar chart for the one on the bottom of the page for County of Tulare. just to show you where we were last year, that huge deficit position, and where we are this year, we're about $500,000 in a deficit, but that's substantially less than we were in the previous year. So we're seeing improvement in that plan, and the number of large claims are subsiding. Any questions on the experience report? I can go through for further detail if you'd like.
No questions? Was there anything else you wanted to show us?
No, I think we're fine with that.
All right. On to item number 10 then. I receive Keenan Pharmacy Services Consultants Report.
Okay. I'd like to introduce Cord Edwards from our Keenan Pharmacy Services team. He'll be joining us going forward, and both counties received the utilization report for the first half of the year. What we have here to report on is just kind of an executive summary of what the results are and some of the concerns and issues that we'll be addressing going forward. So, Cord.
Thanks, Board. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Cord Edwards with the Keenan Pharmacy Services team. So I'll be your new point of contact with Keenan Pharmacy Services. I just want to kind of go over just the first half highlights for 2023, kind of looking at the plan spend. Obviously, we have seen a 13.5% increase in the plan spend for this year. A lot of that's attributed to the specialty plan cost increase, so we're keeping a very close eye on that plan cost and where that's coming from. Some things to also note that wasn't noted on here was that there was 2 new plans put in, high deductible health plans for 23, so we have seen increased utilization in those plans as well. So a lot of this for the specialty claims has really come across for in the first half of this year. So you're looking at just scripts filled alone in 2023, 521 just in Tulare and 904 just in Fresno, and those are just specialty scripts in general. So these have accounted for about $5.5 million for Tulare and $7.2 million in Fresno. So you have seen that 12.7 million dollar increase in total plan spend just for this year. So one of the big things to note is the new variable copay assistance program that's in place. This has been in place since 5/1 of this year. So you have seen $220,000 in savings for that plan, $102,000 to the Tulare and $117,000 towards Fresno. So the second page on here, I don't like to skip ahead, but it does break down the drugs that are on that VCAP plan. So 3 of the the top clinical cost drivers. So 3 of these drugs actually fall into that VCAP plan. So you're looking at the Humira, the Dupixent, and the Rinvoq down at the bottom there. So just to note that these plans, these 3 drugs are actually seeing cost savings through that VCAP plan as well. So looking at kind of clinical savings throughout the plan. So the plan has seen, so for Tulare, January through March of this year, you've seen $660,000 in savings. And with Fresno, you've seen just over $1 million in savings. So with rebates, I know rebates have come up a couple times during the conversation. So you have seen an estimated for Q1 of this year about $1.1 million. And we did note on here, so during the renewal, we actually worked very closely with the Empirics team, and there was claims always kind of get reclassified, whether they're specialty or brand or generic. So we caught a bunch of claims that were actually reclassified from specialty to brand. So during that audit, we actually went back to Empirics and worked with them, and they came back and did a rebate settlement and did pay the plan back $317,000 for that settlement. So, any questions?
Yeah, there was a question that was brought up by one of our supervisors on the diabetic drugs and the edits and how we manage them. So can you please speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Skip forward here. So diabetic medications, are we referring to like the Wegovy and stuff like that, right?
The injectables, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so Empirics does do a full breakdown and currently actually monitors all these medications. So a lot of these medications, the Wegovy and the Candenvi, actually track back. A lot of these have come up and become very popular medications in the market. And you actually, we'll watch a baseball game and you'll see these across the board being advertised, right? So a lot of these, what's happening with these diabetic medications is people utilizing them for weight loss. So what Empirics does is they ensure that these are actually being utilized primarily for diabetics. So these will be a type 2 diabetes or a type 1 diabetes as that primary diagnosis. But these do fall into some of those weight loss categories as well. So Empirics actually goes through and actually breaks these down, ensuring that they're going through the proper steps for weight loss. They're on proper programs looking at these. So if they do actually get prescribed for weight loss, they go through the entire steps of, okay, are you using this for weight loss? Are you using this for diabetes? If it's obviously for diabetes, it's going to go the different route and actually be approved. If it goes through weight loss, they're going to actually ensure that you're looking at these not only for weight loss alone, but you're doing all the proper steps. So you're going through the proper trainings, the reduced calorie diets, and everything else. So they actually look at your body mass index and everything else to ensure these drugs are proper use and not just taking these because I saw a commercial or saw one of my superstars utilizing these medications. So hopefully that answered some of the questions. I know that there's a lot more that kind of goes into it, and if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, I'm happy to kind of dig into those specs, but
I think we just want to ensure that our plan is being properly protected and that there isn't any appropriate usage.
absolutely, and this is a lot of the concerns. I mean, a lot of these medications have been out since last year and been really popular since last year. So I know Empirics is looking very closely at these medications since May of last year, kind of breaking down, ensuring these are being used for the proper indications and proper utilizations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Director Maxey?
So again, looking at, you indicated that costs for 2023 as it relates to specialty drugs have increased 13.5%?
Correct.
And then if you look at where we were in 2022, we had 1,119 specialty scripts written. Compared to 2023, we were at 1,425, significant increase. With these specialty scripts, so are we finding that our workforce is becoming more unhealthy? Because really, what I want to zero in on is, I mean, we're looking at close to a 28% increase on specialty scripts being written for, I would imagine, a workforce that's remained pretty static. So to me, that's a major red flag. So what are we doing to make sure, I heard that when it comes to diabetes, that weight loss drugs aren't being abused, but what else are we doing for some of these other scripts, since it seems like there's a significant increase in these specialty scripts being written?
So with specialty, obviously the challenges here is there's more and more medications hitting the market as far as these the manufacturers creating medications specific for a specific disease state. So more and more often you're seeing these medications as from hitting a doctor's office, they're being prescribed more often. So great that these medications are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're really helping those disease states. But you're also seeing them hit more and more often. Things like the Humira pens really making a difference in the market as far as how they're helping people as far as their health and their recovery. But on the same hand, it is a very high cost drug. You have seen this one come out this next year with Humira coming out with some like generic type products towards it. So you will see those costs kind of go down more and more often as these new medications kind of hit the market to kind of replace some of these specialty meds. So that's really where Empirics is really focusing, and Keenan's kind of working with them, is finding these lower cost alternatives that, you know, maybe not just focus on the cost, but what medication's working best for those memberships, right?
And then one last question.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you take additional drugs or drugs are prescribed, if they work better, you should see maybe a reduction in medical costs because maybe these people aren't having heart attacks, strokes, you know, needing additional surgeries. So have there been any studies, or have you looked at maybe our health costs going down? You indicated, looking at our utilization rate, it was 92% between both Tulare and Fresno counties, but yet our drug costs have gone up. So are there any parallels between the two, that maybe some of these drugs are keeping our employees more healthy?
So working closely, I know, with the board and the team, so I would have to refer kind of back to them on where because I don't look closely at the medical spend itself. So as far as that refers back, I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
I think that's kind of the crossroads where we are right now, is the population, the SJVIA population in general has gotten less healthy. We've seen specifically increases in areas of, you know, chronic heart failure, diabetes, and the traditional diseases that we go with, or that we have. And a lot of that has to do with you know, the emphasis that I've shared with you, with this board, is we need to see what we can do to make people healthier. The prescription drugs are being prescribed. Empirics has a clinical management program that really goes into, if there is an alternative drug that outside of one of these specialty medications, especially new ones that come on board, they will actually talk to the provider to see if it'd be appropriate to move them to a less costly drug. Certainly, and sometimes we're successful there and sometimes not, because that new drug is more appropriate for that individual, and that's fine. But what we really need to do is develop a wellness program. And I think you're going to hear more coming forward from a wellness program. In the past, we've struggled in putting together an overall wellness platform because it required a wellness administrator, and that expense has been, I think the SJVIA tried that prior to me at a very large expense, over $1 million, and it was money not well spent. Now, our two carrier partners, Anthem and Kaiser, are at a position where they can be of greater assistance in that effort of wellness administration at a very minimal cost. I think Anthem's is nothing, and Kaiser's is a very minor fee relative to it. But those are the areas that we're going to be working on to develop. We need to be able to not only make sure that your members are seeing their providers and getting the annual physicals, staying current with screenings, and engaging with their providers. The information I think that you and I both want is, okay, what is the relevance of the diseases, both from how many people we got on it and what the cost is, but also as we go forward, seeing how that wellness program then does relative to reducing the amount of people on there and getting people healthier. And that's kind of the corner we're trying to turn at this point. So we'll work very closely with both Empirics and with our health insurance carriers to see that we go that direction.
Can I also add that I don't know that we actually have a program, a claims management program in place where they're actually, the pharmacy and the medical are actually looking at the claims. So, for example, if they are taking some of these weight loss prescriptions or injectables, how is that affecting the medical plans? I don't know that we've made that connection just yet. We had programs in the past where we can evaluate that information, but we haven't had that in some time. And I think that's more of a claims management to where medical management, where they're looking at the prescriptions being taken on one end and how is that affecting the medical claims on the other end? Is it truly making an impact? And I think that's the part that we're kind of somewhat missing, that we really need to work on improving.
Director Vanderpool.
So a couple things. Number one, I think that we really do need to step up I think you called it clinical management of the pharmaceuticals between the provider and the actual pharmacist, and what drugs are ultimately being taken. I sat through, and so did Nathan, through a round of interviews and hearing from different providers that were coming before us. Some of them seemed that they had more robust clinical management programs. I don't know what we can do with Empirics to expand that effort, but I think that we really need to. That's one point. And then the second thing, as far as wellness goes, I was on the SJVIA when we spent that $1 million on wellness. We realized the priority many years ago that we need to put on wellness, spent the money, hoped we were going to get a result, and we didn't get a result. Now we're spending very little money and still getting no result. So we really do need to ramp up this effort. I think that I can't speak for Fresno County, but I can speak for what Tulare County has done. I mean, I think Fresno County wanted to quit the Walking Works Challenge just because they lost all the time, but You know, I do look at what we do in Tulare County in terms of proactive screenings and the mammogram buses and, you know, that sort of thing. And some of the proactive screenings that we are doing don't address the diabetes or the various illnesses. But, you know, maybe we need to sit down and have just a wellness strategy session, just coming up with what are the main drivers of these increases. Now, I look back, and it could be COVID related in terms of individuals not being able to go and see their primary care physician and sort of the lag, the catch-up. Right. But when you mentioned that there was increases in the diabetes and the chronic illnesses that are high cost, that's scary. I mean, that's not a one-time thing. That's something that's a lifestyle thing. And so we have to do what we can as an entity, as an SJVIA, as individual counties, to really try to turn this tide, because this is something that's been coming at us and it's been consistent, and we haven't been able to do much. Now that our financial position is stabilizing a bit more, you know, I know this last year has been sort of high claim, but I really do think we've got to divert resources and efforts to focus more on wellness and the things that we can control that are driving costs.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Was that it, Borden?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, had other questions at all?
All right. Thank you. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Item number 11 is an action item. It's to receive and accept the consultant's SJVIA actuarially certified incurred but not reported reserve report.
I think if we go to, yes, thank you, that chart. So we have an actuarially certified IBNR report done twice a year for close of the calendar year as of 12/31, and then close of the fiscal year at 6/30. And that gives us basically the information we need to adjust IBNR. The last one that we did for June 30th is skewed because it doesn't include CMC. And you'll see that the actuarial report came down and says, hey, you could release $2.7 million. That's how much the IBNR came down. And my position is that I'd like to accept the actuarial report, but hold the reserve levels as recorded from the previous at December 31st. We're going to revisit it in 6 months again. It's going to show very large claim activity as we pay out the CMC claims in the second half of the year that were incurred in the first half. But hold off and not change it at this time. I think if we were to change it right now and release $2.7 million, we'd just be popping it back up and then be asking, where's the money going to come from?
Makes sense. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Anybody from the public like to comment on this item? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item number 12, receive consultant's plan year 2024 underwriting renewal report. It's also an action item.
At the last board meeting, you received a preliminary renewal report. This is the final renewal report that we have for you. We saw a little bit of relief from our self-funded plans, so the percentages came down a little bit. But what I really want to do is first kind of go over the executive summary on page 3, which kind of outlines, based off current headcount, a comparison of 2023 to 2024 and kind of show you what the differences will be. Overall, starting with the County of Fresno, the EPO plan would be adjusting upwards 1.27. That's not across the board, though. The recommendation is for the EPO 0 to be adjusted to 8.6%, 3.5 for the EPO 501,000. On the PPO and the high deductible health plan, underwriting shows that there's a significant surplus accumulation. The recommendation is at 0, that those rates stay the same. On Kaiser, as presented last time, Kaiser is requesting a, well, the actual renewal is 19.52 for County of Fresno, with the addition of a new plan, which is a high deductible health plan. The reason the number here is 10.7 is even now we have an EPO parity strategy in place. We would remove that EPO strategy, making the net impact about 10.7% on the current Kaiser plan. Dental and vision are both in good surplus positions, and we recommend just holding those rates as is. And that kind of completes the County of Fresno. For County of Tulare, the renewal came down a little bit, not much. We're at 11.51%. The recommendation is with a buy-down strategy that Tulare would like to renew at 5%. The buy-down would be coming from ARPA funds that would be being transferred from the county to the SJVIA. On the Kaiser side, there's right around 100 people in the Kaiser plan for County of Tulare, but it is at 20.78% is the increase there. And they also have 10 people in the Kaiser Senior Advantage, so it's a retiree plan, and that cost is going up 20.86%. We did try to negotiate with Kaiser, but Kaiser typically, because of their model, once the rates are set, they're kind of set, and there's very, very little that can be done there.
Board, excuse me.
Yeah.
On Kaiser, repeat the numbers again. We have 10 employees that are retirees that are on Kaiser. Is that correct?
That are on the Kaiser Senior Advantage, so it's coordinated with Medicare.
Okay, and then how many, and then what's the rest of the numbers on Kaiser?
About 100 folks, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Borden, real quick, because I know that you're mentioning some numbers, percentages that have come down. What was presented in our packet, though, I think what staff overall is recommending, all things to be considered, is County of Fresno's increases to be 4.12%, County of Tulare's 12.13%, barring ARPA, that I guess that is going to be used, right, and that will buy down the rates. This is in what staff prepared for us. And I assume the ARPA dollars that Tulare County is going to be throwing back in to lower those rates, is that specific to like claims that were tied back to COVID, or just in general you guys are looking to just kind of buy those rates down a little bit?
We actually had $3.1 million in COVID claims. And so only 598 of that was used for this renewal. So we still have another $2 million in order for us to cover the actual COVID claims.
Got it. And I think Fresno County, we did this last year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so was there any discussion by staff there in Fresno County to take a look and see if there's an opportunity for us to use ARPA dollars to buy down our rates as well? Or I don't know if that came up at all.
So if I could, so first of all, it is my understanding that the SJVIA has not received any ARPA dollars yet. They still need to be transferred to the SJVIA, and it's on that promise that we expect that to happen. In the underwriting itself, we are applying ARPA dollars there. For the County of Fresno, it's $1,031,210. So the experience period was from July 1st of 2022 through June 30th of 23. That's the actual dollar amount of COVID-related claims, paid claims, that were realized under the Anthem plan. So we're saying, we're treating that as, that's a third-party liability and should be taken out, credit should be given for that, because it's just as though if our plan paid a claim that we found out was actually a workers' comp claim, we would ask for reimbursement for that as well.
So what I'm hearing is these numbers, the percentages then, already take that into consideration.
Yes.
So is there additional ARPA dollars then that Tulare County is giving to, because you indicated that they're going to buy their rates down, so the increase will only be 5% overall, correct?
Yeah. If
So
you
we onboarded, but we were only able to use 598 for this renewal because it happened between June 2022
Correct.
through July 1st, 2022 through June of 2023. So we could only use 598,000 of COVID claims towards this renewal. But we have incurred 3.2 million over the course of since 2020. So which is what we're using to kind of buy down these claims, is pay those COVID claims that we've incurred since then.
And I've got no problem with that. And with Fresno, if somehow, if Fresno has not paid this, I don't know what the holdup is. We have the money, let's get it paid. And if, one thing too we need to recognize, the documentation that we have before us sitting as the SJVIA board, there needs to be notations exactly of, as we buy down rates, specifically the amount of money that's being used to do that, because it is, as rates are lowered because of us doing this, we can only do this to the extent we have ARPA dollars available. So at some point in the future, we won't be able to buy down rates. And so I don't want to create an expectation for our members that we serve that our counties have the ability to continue to buy down rates. Specifically, we're doing this for COVID, so I think there needs to be a notation on our documents as we do this. And for Fresno County, we need to quickly get something on the agenda and just make this happen so it's not a promissory note that's out there at some point we'll pay.
I think all it's held up right now is just some of the backup documentation at the auditor's office. Is that correct, staff, Fresno staff? So it should be happening soon.
And Director Maxig, if I can direct you to page 4, we do document there for both counties. If you look under renewal strategies, under County of Fresno, the third sub-bullet shows there that under the underwriting or the experience period, we're assuming that $1 million number there. If you go further down in the report for County of Tulare, the last 3 bullet points, one shows the 593,000, which is included in the underwriting, and then the buy down of $2 million to get it from 11.5 to 5% for an overall ARPA fund transfer of just under 2.6 million.
So Borden, how is Fresno at 1 million and yet Tulare is over 3 million and we have more people?
No,
yeah, how is that?
So your 3 million, if you look at COVID, the start point is March of 2020. The 1 million and the 593 are just a snapshot. What happened in the last 12 months ending June 30th. So it's not all of it.
So Hollis, is Fresno County going to go back to the beginning like what Tulare County is doing, or what's the strategy?
Our dates for the ARPA, staff, can you please come up to speak to our dates? When we requested it?
It's allocated, yeah.
The dates that we're looking at for the COVID claims for County of Fresno are going to be March of 2021, I believe, through February of 2022. Our ARPA request for reimbursement is at a total of, I believe, 2.47 million. Right now, the request for reimbursement is with our auditor's office. They were very thorough in the information that they asked for, and we're very appreciative of that, but it has created a little bit more time in getting those reports and sending it over to our auditor's office.
We will look to see if there's any additional ARPA money that we can get that is outside of what we have already requested.
Again, you just said 2.47 million, but what we're looking at here is 1,031,000. So where's the, we're looking at 1.3 million that's missing.
The 1.1 is the last 12 months of the COVID
Yeah.
experience. The 2.47 refers to the initial ARPA reimbursement request for 2021.
SJVIA hasn't received either the 2.47 or the 1,031,000. So that brings our pot up to whatever, call it 3.5 million is what ultimately Fresno County should be contributing, right?
So far, 2.4 is inclusive of the 1.
So it goes back to Brian's question, why is Fresno County so much lower than Tulare counties? Because we have, you know, a much larger, you know, base of people.
Yeah. County of Tulare went all the way back to March 20 when.
Oh, and we did 21.
Yeah. We stopped.
Well, I like Tulari's method of buying the rates down, I'll tell you that. So if we have that opportunity, I think on Fresno, which I realize this is not different than us, but we need to do that and lower our people's rates.
And I think the logic behind that is, you know,
That's a
we
great
were frontline responders. We had a lot of folks that experienced COVID because of being on the front lines. And so we went all the way back as far as we could.
Yeah.
And that's what ARPA was supposed to do, was to reimburse counties and local governments for COVID-related losses.
I think that's a great strategy. I concur with my colleague. We can't do it forever, but if we can do it now, we should do it now in terms of Fresno County. So I don't know how 21 was chosen, but it should be March of 20.
I agree.
I think that was originally some of our direction on what we could request reimbursement on, but we will, staff will go back and request for any dates that we did not do.
All right, thank you.
You know, and one of the difficult things that this board has to decide upon as well too is, you know, whenever there's a buy down of rates, there has to be a reason why that buy down is being presented. And because if not, you've basically loaded yourself, for instance, in this example, with 5% to be added on next year to the rates. So the thought process is we've seen.
I don't follow that, Borden.
No, because you have to use outside money.
Yeah.
That's if you use an inside money.
Yeah.
But if you use outside money, it's not.
Well.
Yeah. If we're making a decision to pay the premium instead of the employee, how is that doubling next year? I don't see that. I agree with Supervisor Mendez. We're using outside money to pay that. So it's the county's money versus the employee's money. How is that going to cause a problem for next year?
When we used for County of Tulare, when we used the 593,000 that we experienced over the last 12 months and discounted that out of the underwriting, we came up with a number of 11.51 is what this renewal needs.
You speak in the mic, because
Oh, I'm sorry. Is what the plan would need for next year. So then, unless you're going to continue a buy down of 5% every year after year after year, and if the experience doesn't improve, and that was kind of the point that I'm getting to, is in the previous year, we were well above 110% loss ratio. This year, we're at about 103% loss ratio. That big hit that County of Tulare took that lasted more than a year, we believe that trend will continue going forward such that will normalize. In other words, if we did 11.51, I believe that next year, County of Tulare would contribute greater to margin than it needed to. And so because of that, we can the money's available to do a buy down. We can do the buy down, and we can hedge hopefully on the fact that claims will normalize further going. But if we don't, and claims don't normalize, we start 5 points down because we'll have 5 points plus trend.
But we also didn't use all of the ARPA money to buy the claims down. We still have 500,000 that we still left that we didn't buy down in claims.
Yeah, as long as there's a fund available, and eventually that fund will drain up as well too. That's all I'm saying. being cautious, I'm agreeing with the 5% buy down this year, but I'm also saying if we have adverse activity,
But we're reimbursing the SJVIA for the claims that we incurred for COVID. It's essentially what we're doing.
yeah.
We're reimbursing the SJVIA back.
And the underwriting takes that into consideration. The $2 million that you're doing the buy down, it's really immaterial whether it's ARPA or some other surplus that the county has or whatever. Well, it probably is from a county perspective, but those funds are available. They were utilized, and it certainly is appropriate from that perspective as well, too. That's all I'm saying.
And absent a more robust wellness effort or, more robust clinical farm, I mean, we can take control of the things we can control in hopes that we can reverse the trend that's been taking place. And I think that's what we've talked about doing as well. Right. But, I agree with what Lupe said. These are COVID claims that were in the past borne by our employees in the SJVIA through past increases that we're paying for now.
And technically, if you look at it, the ARPA funds received, we applied them appropriately as they should have been to the underwriting. Any balance that we received simply should have been a transfer into the reserves. But rather than transfer them to the reserves, the County of Tulare is wanting to do a buy down with them, which I'm fine with as well too. However, if a buy down doesn't completely work, and you look at the fact that last year, County of Tulare did a little bit of, not as much of a buy down, but a minor one, and we're at 103%. Had we not done that buy down, we would have been at about 100% because the premium would have been higher.
But that's from internal reserves, not necessarily external
right.
money that we're putting in.
It's the position I take, it's kind of immaterial what reserve that money came from, but when you buy down the rate in the subsequent year, the first thing of underwriting we do is we look at what's the current premium coming in, and that's absent of any buy down. It would be the actual premium rates that we're using.
Any other questions about that?
Okay.
And to Supervisor Pacheco, we just double checked that our direction was eligible costs was from March 3rd, 2021 and ends on 2024. So there will be additional money coming as we do that. I just wanted to make that clear.
I think we got through the medical on Tulare. Tulare would like to increase their dental calendar year maximum. It's 1,000, which is below comparable organizations, what they have, and wants to move that to 2,000. That will require a 10% increase in the rate. It's not a substantial amount of money, but that is being contemplated here as well for County of Tulare. And then the vision is at 0, and the dental HMO is at 0 as well too.
Borden, I have a question on dental. I'm
Sure.
sorry to interrupt. Maybe this is not the right spot. Are you aware or have you heard of any contractual problems between the providers and Delta? My dentist at Delta just went across the board to everybody, and they're changing how they've done business. They won't pay the provider direct. Now it has to go to the employee. And they say just bring the check to us, and they'll sign it over. But they're changing, and they said Delta was kind of playing hardball. Have you heard of anything?
I have. Here's what's happening, and it's happening in various different regions throughout the state. And I know the more rural you are, the greater the impact has been. And so this region, you're not as rural as some other areas that are dealing with this. And the fundamental principle is this, that Delta Dental has has basically two different discount levels. One is for PPO, which is the greatest discount, and the other one is for Premier, which is a lesser discount, and then you can just go out of network as well too on a lot of the plans and go see whomever you want. The issue is that as Delta Dental is pushing for everybody to belong to the PPO network, which gives the highest discount, many established dentists are having difficulty with this because they're saying, I don't want that little of the money. I want your Premier discount. I'm happy with that. And they're getting squeezed. The alternative, what the providers are doing, is exactly what you outlined. They're saying, hey, this is what I charge for this. You come, give me a check, and then I'll give you the receipt. You submit that, and whatever you get reimbursed is your business. And that's leaving what's called a balanced bill oftentimes with the employee. And that's where, you know, all of a sudden there's consternation because they were expecting a greater reimbursement or whatever the case might be.
Well, my concern is that it's causing hardship on our people having to pay up front when they didn't have to.
Right.
And usually the doctor would see them. Now, my dentist I've been going to for 30 years, so he just says, just bring me the check when you get it because he knows me. But other people are having to pay up front. They have insurance, they're having to pay up front, and it's cost prohibitive for some people. So is there anything we can do to advocate this to try to help? Because it's just, you know, you got somebody with a bunch of family getting a job, starting, paying insurance out of their pocket, and all of a sudden they walk into a dentist. It's not a $20 copay or a $35 copay. It's the whole bill.
Yeah.
What does the contract say with our contract with Delta Dental?
The contract with Delta Dental says you don't have to pay anything up front. You go in, get the services, show your card. The provider is to bill the Delta Dental, and they'll settle it, and Delta Dental let the individual know what their responsibility is.
Are they going against the agreement that they have with?
They are. They are. But Delta Dental also provides a procedure for if you do have a paper claim that you've paid, how to submit that. And so they've created an avenue in an environment where the contract reads opposite, but the providers are doing that because otherwise they're seeing their reimbursement not being sufficient enough.
I don't know when was the last time we went out to RFP for dental plans, and maybe that may be a time now that we go out and look at other dental plans.
It may be time to look at that if that is a growing concern. One of the big differences is, and an RFP would confirm that, is Delta Dental is your largest network. And that's, depending in your area, it's 40 to 50% larger in the dentists that take it. But is it really if the dentists are doing a workaround and acting almost as though they're an indemnified dentist, not a network dentist?
So I have not heard any complaints from employees. I just know what was explained to me. It didn't make a lot of sense. And I could see by the look in the audience, it didn't make any sense to them either. Is this occurring in Fresno County as well? Or are we the blessed ones?
Yesterday afternoon, I was at a board meeting in Monterey County. And there they have, I think it's 26 school districts that I work with. It's a big issue there. And it's exactly how you described it, and it's exactly what we're doing is we're looking at alternative plan designs and other things to deal with it. So, as I mentioned, it's regionalized right now. You go to Southern California in the more urban areas, it's really not that big of an issue, but they got a heck of a lot more dentists to choose from. So
that's the problem is we're limited,
exactly.
Especially here by providers. We're limited by who will actually come in here. But yeah, maybe Loopy, if you can just kind of keep your ear open and see if staff complains, because it's just, like I said, he says, I've known you, just when you get your check, bring it to me. But if someone's got to pay the bill up front, I mean, it's going to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's really about noise at that point. It's is it a big enough issue where we want to go out to bid, do an RFP, look for alternatives so that your membership is taken care of?
And I agree, in being a county employee and being subject to the decisions made at these boards, if I got a family of 4 or 3 and I got to spend $2,000 out of pocket, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
So we need to look at everybody.
And I just want to say too, I'm just really glad that Larry goes to the dentist.
Quick comment, one of the things we could do is just bring it internal and then figure out a negotiation strategy for different procedures that are going to be done and create our own network and just pay direct. Because right now, I assume with Delta Dental or whoever we currently are using, I think it's Delta Dental, they're like a third-party administrator for us, correct? And they go out and negotiate prices with all the doctors' claims are run through them and then they pay. So if we pay direct, I think we could probably get better pricing
So
too.
it would require a move from Delta Dental because they will not allow a direct contract to exist next to them. At least that's what we've explored for this other group, and they won't. So it's going to require some movement. But we can create a network. Up north, there's a dental provider. I think it's the Stanislaus Foundation. And they've been able to do a good job, and they're kind of indemnified and have contracts in place as well, too. So it's been done in other counties. So we could talk to them as well, see how they're doing it.
All right, any other questions on that? Great catch, Larry. Great discussion, appreciate it.
So there's a on page 4 at the bottom of the page, there's a chart with the recommendations. I won't go through them again, but that's basically the outline of what the recommendations are. I'll be more than happy to go through any other parts of the renewal that you'd like to have presented at this point as well.
Kind of going back, are you still in negotiations or speaking with Delta regarding these raises and increases?
Well, the 10% is to go from a 1,000, that's just a plan design change, to go from 1,000 to 2,000.
But my question is, are you still in discussion with them on regular or anything?
No, not in this region, we haven't been negotiating with them.
Just, if you have the opportunity, if you could bring up the last topic and tell them the hardship it's causing, I'd appreciate it and see what we can do.
I will.
Thank you.
Is that it, Gordon?
Yes, it is.
All right. This is an action item. So I'll ask the public, any members of the public like to comment on this item? I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item number 13, also an action item. Receive update on SJVIA's direct agreement with community medical centers and community health providers, and ratify SJVIA manager decision to cease claims payment under the direct agreement.
Go ahead, yeah.
So action was required since our last board meeting by the SJVIA managers relative to the CMC and Anthem contracting. Originally, we had hoped that we could just start the Anthem contract effective 7/1, which would actually go back all the way to January 1 and start processing claims. CMC was not, we would have needed CMC's agreement to that. CMC was not in agreement with that. What they were in agreement was that starting August 1st, that the Anthem contract pay claims, and from January 1st through the end of July 31st, that the direct contract we have preside over the claim payment. And so that action was approved by the SJVIA managers, and council mentioned that we would need to ratify that action here with the board.
Any questions or comments? None? This is an action item. Any members of the public like to comment on this item? And I'll accept the motion.
Second.
Motion and a second by Director Magsic. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 14, SJVIA Director, questions, announcements, and activity reports. Anybody?
Well, just real quick, so we, Pacheco and Mendez, myself, and I know Brandow would, I'm pretty sure he'd be supportive of dealing with looking at COVID dollars, and even though we just set rates, maybe there's an opportunity to apply ARPA dollars at some point moving forward where maybe we could give a rate holiday to some of our employees. So just wanted to make sure that staff, it's clear that staff's been given direction to really take a hard look at that and also go back to March of 2020 with all COVID-related costs incurred.
Amy, would you, right before we close, like to stand and lead us in My Country 'Tis of Thee? All right, then. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. I will do that. Second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.